All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. And council folks, I believe Zoom is not working tonight, so we will be recording to be on YouTube. So only people watching on YouTube or here in the audience will see the meeting this evening. The Zoom problem should be fixed tomorrow, reportedly by Zoom itself, whoever Zoom is. So anyway, it is May 13th, 2024. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. Can we have the meeting statement, please?
Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, including the time, date, and location of the meeting. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you very much. We'll do the land acknowledgement. I'll do it tonight. We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come. We have roll call, please.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Here.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Sachs? Here. Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Newland?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. If you'd like to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, let's go back and forth here and see council members with announcements, reports, updates. Eve.
Just a couple of quick things I'd like to share. Princeton's gas leaf blower ban, or seasonal ban, comes back into effect on May 16th, and from May 16th until the end of September, gas-powered leaf blowers are no longer allowed to be used. And on a more positive note, although I guess that could be positive too, I just wanted to remind people about the flag raising for Pride Month. Although Pride Month is in June, we are doing the flag raising on Friday, May 31st at Monument Hall at noon, and I encourage everyone to come join us for this. It's a lovely occasion. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Other council announcements or reports? Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any staff announcements, Bernie? We need
Yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor. One item, I've placed some display boards outside for Heinz Plaza. If anybody would like to give us some feedback, there's also some feedback forms on the table at the back of the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Also like to remind everyone that the Memorial Day Parade in Princeton this year it's always on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, so that's Saturday the 25th. The parade is at 10 a.m., starts at Princeton Avenue and Nassau Street, goes down to Monument Hall, and there's a short ceremony there. And just so all the elected officials remember, you're all invited to march in the parade. And of course, as we tell all the elected folks, whatever level they're at, it's just a Memorial weekend event. It is not a campaign event or anything like that, so nothing political, but we're all allowed to march in the parade.
Could I forgot to mention, because I thought Jim would, just something to celebrate. The opening of Chambers Street is now a two-way again. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know it was going to be today. So it was a great thing to see.
Saturday, opened
Saturday.
early.
Okay. Well, I just happened to go by this morning and I saw it. I said, wow.
It's a pleasant
This looks
surprise.
very nice surprise.
Okay. Let's go to public comments for items not on the agenda. If anybody, just come on up to the lectern, state your name, address. We need a microphone for the lectern. One sec. And then, no, well, it won't record it if we don't have it on there. So just your name, your address, and then a timer should go on to keep you concise.
Hello. My name is Ronald Berlin. My address is 245 Jefferson Road. I attended, and that's in quotes, the two master plan sessions of the planning board. And though I did appreciate the snacks that my wife was able to discreetly pass along to me while I remained invisible in the Zoom meeting, I found it very much wanting and bordering on undemocratic in its elimination of the live element. As one of the participants pointed out during the meeting, there's no way to, quote, take the temperature of the room, and no way to communicate approval or disapproval of what members of the public say. Equally bad, you can't know who's there, and you can't interact with them afterwards. And I guess you saw a lot of that today. I missed that, but from what I understand, that was the case. The COVID pandemic has been over for a while now, and our public meetings should be true meetings of the public again. You are the governing body of this town. I am requesting that you require that the planning board's meetings be held in a hybrid format, that is, both in person and via Zoom, to reap the benefits of both, so we can still include those who can't attend in person. It is a little more challenging, but with competent technical assistance, it is perfectly feasible and will be well worth it. Citizens really need to be able to interact with one another at a public meeting, to see who shows up, to participate in their democracy in ways that are not so controlled and sterile. These encounters are invaluable, and townspeople and their public servants need to be able to stand in each other's presence. I can tell you that many people feel very strongly about this and think that it's important. Every election year, candidates routinely promise greater transparency and openness in government and claim that they will embrace the participation of the citizenry. Well, here's your chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else here? Yes, please. Again, just come up, state your name and address. And
Hey. Good evening, everybody. This is Priyabrata Hota. I live in 27 to 73 Hamilton Avenue. This is the first time I'm talking in any of the council meetings. So I had some concerns regarding like bicycling and walking in Princeton. So I will just give my background first, like good things first. Like I moved to Princeton last year. I have a family of 2 kids and my wife. Like we have been car free for last 8 years, since 2016, and I'm somehow managing it in Princeton also for the last 2 years. So the good thing is, like in Princeton is a real 50-minute city where my elementary school, doctor, shopping center, library, swimming pool, and everything is like 15 minutes from walking or cycling distance from my house at least, where I live like in Hamilton Avenue. Maybe it's not that for somebody living in the corner, but that's for my case. I'm proud to say that my 10-year-old can ride to school, to Littlebrook School, with little or no supervision that I cannot imagine in any other town around Princeton or any other city inside New Jersey. Also, like Princeton exceeded my expectation in terms of like how the drivers act with the cyclists when you are riding together on a street. While Princeton doesn't have dedicated bike lanes, like they are very much helpful, 9 out of 10 cases. So these are all the nice things what happened with me like last 1 year. I would like to draw your attention to some of the things which are of concern, basically. So without the availability of a dedicated bike lane, it's pretty difficult to ride from the library to my house or anywhere else during the night. Like it's pitch dark and like it's very difficult to share the road with the cycle. You have to be really dressed in green and with lights and everything. The other main thing is the NJ Safe Passing Law was passed like a year back, but I don't think there is enough understanding between the public that you should be giving enough space to a cyclist or somebody who is walking when the road is very narrow. And I had pretty much close calls recently with some of the drivers. And what ends up being is like you call the cops, but the cops are not in the place to see what happened. So they come and ask you like the standard questions, basically. I think I'm running out of time, but they ask you the standard question that, are you hurt? Do you need an ambulance or something? You say, no, I'm not hurt, but the car like really passed very close to me. So they say that, okay, then you inform us next time this happens. And then you call engineering, tell them that, okay, this road needs some improvements and something is needed. They say that, okay, we don't see any major thing happening on the road. So not necessarily somebody died or somebody broken a leg, but every time I stand on Snowden Avenue, I have to like wait for 5 cars to be merciful on me to like let me pass the street. So my recommendation is like my request is for Princeton Council to like basically go through the recommendation of the bike advisory committee or
Okay.
whoever.
Thank you.
And like,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Anybody else in the room for something not on the agenda? All right, since Zoom isn't working, I can't ask for people remotely. Okay. So we'll close the public comment section of the meeting and go to our work session. 2024 Bicycle Facilities Implementation Plan. Jim, I have a,
Thank you,
Do you want-
Mr. Mayor. Adam, can I have this screen, please?
Yeah, can I,
Able to?
can I kick it off, Jim?
Jim, 1 sec, Michelle wants
Do you
to-
mind?
Sorry?
Can I kick it off? Can I just say a few words
Oh, go
before we
ahead.
start? Thanks. And I, actually, the public comment, thank you for that. He's been coming to the advisory committee. It's kind of is on the agenda tonight because we're doing a work session on this very subject. I just want to mention how hard and thank the Pedestrian Bike Advisory Committee. Lori Harmon is the chair, and they've worked really hard with the engineering department to look at how we can piggyback on various projects that are coming down the road this year, and how we could do both shared markings, bike lanes, and so on. This is such an important subject, an area for our town as we are increasing more personal electric vehicles. There's just more vehicles on the road, and we just need to find safer ways to get kids and experienced bikers and bikers like me and people on scooters, all to be able to move around town safely. So I'm really excited that we're moving forward with this project. And so now I'll say thank you to Jim and Deanna and team for working really hard too with the group. So, all right, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, I'm here to discuss what we can do this year in terms of implementing our bicycle facilities plan. We have some opportunities this year. PSE&G gas system modernization project is underway. As most people know, 12 miles of gas mains are being replaced, and all the services associated with those new gas mains. So they're doing a pretty good job tearing up our roadways. We have our resurfacing program, as we do every year, and we also have several capital improvement projects that are taking place. One of the things that the important key elements behind everything that we do, whenever we have opportunities that we do take into consideration bicycle facilities in our construction projects, and the first thing we look at is the master plan and the bike network of the mobility element. And as we approach any project, we look to implement the goals of Complete Streets, which is providing safe transportation alternatives for all users. And of course, given limited resources, we want to implement these elements when we have the opportunity to do so. We have a unique opportunity this year with all of the construction work that's taking place and all of the PSE&G work in particular. PSE&G is required to repave when they put in a trench. They're required to repave from the nearest curb or edge of road to the outer edge of their trenches. If a road has been recently paved within the last 5 years, they're required to pave the full width of the road. So we've identified roads where, number one, they will be required to pave full width because of the moratorium on new pavement. Two, they'll be required to pave they won't be required to pave any at all because we have our own projects underway. And three, where we would like them to pave full width in exchange for those they're not paving. So essentially, we're doing some horse trading with them. They put in a new gas main on Witherspoon Street, and we said, you don't have to repave Witherspoon Street since we're rebuilding it. So in exchange for that, we want you to pave South Tulane or some other street. So we work with them to determine what roads we can get paved full width instead of just what they're required to by the Bureau of Public Utilities. There are other cases where paving full width may be necessary, most often when many services have been replaced. So that was the case in the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood, where because of so many services on both sides of the road, they essentially tore up the entire width of the roads. So Green Street and Lytle Street were paved full width by them. South Tulane Street as well was paved full width. So what we're looking at is a couple of different things that we're going to ask PSE&G to do. First of all, they have to replace the existing bicycle markings. And those exist on North Harrison Street from Valley Road to Franklin Avenue, where they've put in a new gas main. Those are shared lane markings. So they're obviously going to put those back. On Guillot Avenue from Moore Street to Linden Street, they put in a trench. So that is a bike boulevard. They're going to put back the bike boulevard markings. Same thing on Spruce Street. Unfortunately, something that we just completed a nice new project for, and they had to tear it up. So they're repaving Spruce Street, and we're going to have them put back bike boulevard markings as are in there. And Franklin Avenue. Now, Franklin Avenue is shared lane markings according to the master plan, and currently shown as shared lane markings. You will notice that PBAC is recommending that we put in bike lanes on those roads. So we need to look at that and take the opportunity at a later date on that. One of the things I want to point out about everything that PSE&G is doing is we have a short time frame. What happened? We have a short time frame because when they decide they're going to pave, we don't have a lot of time to plan and do design for new facilities. We can only do what is available through traffic markings on new pavement. So the next stage of what PSE&G is doing is we're going to ask them to install new markings. Now, this is subject to their agreement. I want to be very clear. We haven't negotiated with them yet. They don't have to do this. If the markings aren't there now, they don't have to put them back. So what we're looking for from council is an agreement that we would like to see them, or we would like to see these markings put in place. So we'd like to have them stripe these roads with the appropriate bicycle symbols as envisioned in the master plan by way of that bike network map developed in 2017. Walnut Lane is footnoted on this slide because Walnut Lane is designated in the master plan for a new shared use path. However, most of Walnut Lane has already been marked as a bike boulevard between Franklin Avenue and Guillot Avenue. And there's this one section from Guillot to Valley Road that is not marked, and we would like to continue the bicycle boulevard up to Valley Road. So that's a little bit of a deviation from what's in the master plan. Moore Street from Spruce to Park Place is in the master plan as a bike boulevard. Valley Road in the master plan says shared lane markings. Hodge Road is a bike lane westbound. So these are new markings that don't exist now that we would like to negotiate with PSE&G to put them in when they finish their paving. Hodge Road in particular will require council action because in order to put in a bike lane, we need to prohibit parking on Hodge. This is between Baird and Library Place. The next opportunity we have is our own resurfacing program. And we've looked at all of the roads that we've chosen, and it turns out there's only one road that falls into being a road that is on the bicycle network plan, and that is Riverside Drive. Half of Riverside Drive was paved a few years back, I believe by PSE&G. It is the southbound side of Riverside from Nassau to Prospect. We would like to repave in our resurfacing program Riverside northbound. Actually, it's more like 2/3 of the roadway needs to be repaved. So that is in our resurfacing program. The master plan calls for a bike lane and a shared use path. We are recommending that we move forward and we put in the bike lane between Nassau and Prospect. That would require eliminating the parking along Riverside Elementary School frontage. And then we have our own, and this list here is really kind of a public service announcement, more or less, so that the public understands that as we are doing our projects, we are moving forward with bicycle facility improvements. As you know, Witherspoon Street is having shared lane markings. We're also adding in a lot of traffic calming to make it more comfortable for bicyclists to be on the street. Alexander Dickinson University is going into final design. We will be submitting it to NJDOT and going to bid sometime soon, and hopefully in construction in the fall. We are implementing shared lane markings on University Place. Alexander is a different animal. Again, we have to look more carefully at it and determine what to do sometime in the future. So that's not included in our project right now for bicycle facilities. Mount Lucas Road improvements, we're in final design and will be submitting to DOT for approval an off-road shared use path extension that goes from Stewart to Poor Farm. As you know, Terhune Road improvements are underway. Half of the road between North Harrison and partway to Grover is being reconstructed by the Alice Development, and the municipality is working on the other side of the road, all the way out to Grover, to put in some traffic calming and to put in dedicated bike lanes. We will have dedicated bike lanes on both sides of the road. Those are in final design. Our municipal project is in final design. The Alice is doing construction. The Cherry Hill Road shared use path is in preliminary design right now. That is an extension between Foulet and Crestview of the existing pathway. We envision that, and we'll be talking to BBAC about a bike route that would take people off of Cherry Hill Road down Crestview and back into a network that connects off of Cherry Hill Road. The Terhune Road pedestrian improvements between Mount Lucas and North Harrison Street. We're just going into concept development. We will be designing a completion of all of the sidewalks on both sides of the road and widening of those sidewalks so that we have a better pedestrian and bicycle network there. I think I skipped over the Hamilton Avenue sanitary sewer upgrades. That's in final design. The sewer department would like to replace the sanitary sewer in Hamilton Avenue between Moore and Linden. That is going into construction, we hope, this fall. That is between Moore and Linden. And this is an opportunity for us to finally implement the bike study and put in bike lanes between Moore and Linden. However, we will need to have council eliminate parking in that area of Hamilton Avenue. We do have, council has received recommendations from PBAC in the form of a memo. At this time, engineering will try to implement as much as we can, but we can't do the full complement, mostly due to these time constraints and other considerations. Adding in bike lanes requires some design work to be done, some warrant analysis, other engineering study things that we would like to get as much as we can done this summer with all of this repaving. So our recommendation is that PBAC be tasked with reviewing the bicycle network in total as it's currently presented in the master plan and making some recommendations for changes. We're happy to work with them to do that, but it must go through the appropriate channels as a part of the master plan and get approved by the planning board. So in summary, PSE&G is required to replace the existing markings. We're going to have them do that. We will ask them to add new markings, and we'd like to negotiate with them on that. We will need future council action to prohibit parking by ordinance on Riverside Drive, Hodge Road, and Hamilton Avenue in order for us to put in the bicycle lanes that are in the master plan for that. And repeating, PBAC should review the bicycle network plan and recommend the changes. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, all right, just a couple comments real quick, just so people understand. We're in a work session, which means we're not making decisions. We're simply asking questions, making comments. And just to clarify, overall, on any of these projects, when you say they're in final design, anything related to bike paths or bike markings, shared lanes, anything of any type really does not impact the design other than what happens with markings on the roadway, or does it impact the design? Because if so, that means we would need to have those discussions right away.
Some of what I have on that list are actually, sorry, some of the items on this list are actually bicycle facilities. So Mount Lucas Road is a shared use path for bikes and pedestrians.
Yeah, well, let me differentiate between off-road and on-road, right? So some of the ones that are shared off-road, I mean, I don't think we're going to be as worried about the impact. I'm more worried about if you need council action on something.
The only ones we'll need council action on are the Riverside Drive, Hodge Road, and Hamilton Avenue.
Yeah.
And that the only council action needed for us to actually implement new bike lanes on those roads is to prohibit parking.
Right, but doesn't impact your design of the roadway.
Does not impact our design.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that was real clear. I didn't want us to go down that rabbit hole if we could avoid it.
I have
All right.
some
Okay.
clarifications, though.
Michelle had her hand up, then we're just going to work our way right on down the line.
So just going back to what the PBAC recommendations are and then what we talked about, there are a couple of things that I just wanted to clarify. First of all, Valley Road was recommended to remove parking and put bike lanes, according to the PBAC memo. Jim, it's not here, so I don't know if something changed for Valley.
The only thing that changed for Valley is that according to the master plan, that's not supposed to have bike lanes.
Okay.
So if a deviation from that can be done, we can put in the bike lanes if council desires to do that. But what I was presenting was what we can do based on the master plan, because
Got it.
because when PSE&G goes to pave it, it may be 2 or 3 weeks from now, and I need the markings. I can't put a bike lane in until because it's a deviation from the master plan.
Got it.
And
Okay,
council's-
I didn't
okay,
know that.
sorry.
Okay, so there are a couple of areas that
Michelle?
could be,
David has his hand up.
No,
He may be
it's-
able
it's
to
okay.
shed
She had-
some light on Valley Road.
oh,
No?
No,
Okay.
no,
I
I wasn't going to
okay, I just want
comment on
to
Valley.
clarify. So the ones that would be deviations from the master plan that would have to go back to the planning board are Franklin, Valley, I think there was one other, and Walnut, right?
I spoke to the planning director, and the designation of that one block of Walnut between Geo and Valley, he did not feel that was significant enough because the rest of Walnut is already a bicycle boulevard, he felt that we could make that decision as the engineering department.
Okay. And then the other thing that is not here were shared markings for Library Place. Were we going to add those? Leaving the parking, so we don't have to make any decisions, but I
Leaving
just
the
want to make
parking
sure
and
they're on
putting
the
in
list.
shared- Okay. We can certainly ask PSE&G to do that when they repave.
Okay,
I'll
great.
add that in.
Okay, and you said hot, yeah, okay. Yeah, everything else I think is great. Thank you, Jim.
Eve?
Hey, thanks. I could be misremembering, but I thought when we talked about Riverside, we talked about removing the parking on both sides. Would it just be the school side?
If I'm not mistaken, you're only allowed to park on the school side. Parking is only allowed on one side of the road.
Huh. Okay, I see cars on the other side of
I
the
think
street
what's
all the
allowed and
time,
what
but-
happens are two different things.
What's
But,
allowed and what yeah.
but, okay, so let's assume if there was parking allowed on the other side of the street, then we would not want that. So we're basically removing all the parking on Riverside. So I had a conversation with Michelle earlier, which led me to a concern that I just wanted to bring up with you, specifically about Riverside, because it is such a broad, straight street. I'm concerned about the removing of the parking leading to, a lowering of the friction that reduces the speed of cars. So I just wanted to ask you to kind of think about that a little bit, and what are we compromising safety by taking away the parking there, by encouraging the cars to speed?
We would be striping narrower lanes and a dedicated bike lane. So there's a balance that takes place. We may see increased speeds, but if we see more bicycles on the roadway, we'll see reduced speeds. So we're trying to implement what's in the master plan, which says a bike lane and, for some reason, a bike lane and a shared use path. But that I don't see it as a problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to hear. Thank you so much.
David?
Couple things. One, just your list of improvements that are underway. You did not mention Rosedale with all the side path improvements. So I want to make sure my colleagues remember that that's a project which has been underway for how many years?
I think it's 6 now.
But
Rosedale Road Safe Routes to School project is still in preliminary engineering. And because I was listing 24, 25 capital projects, I don't believe that it's going to be ready to go into construction for quite a while yet. The federal government has held it up, requiring a full cultural resources review. So we've had to do archaeological investigations and historic architecture as well, and that's currently underway. So I didn't put it in as a 24, 25 capital project. It's still underway.
I'm sorry I asked. The two other things I wanted to mention, the segment of Moore where you're suggesting the bike boulevard markings is quite short between Spruce and Park Place. I know that that segment is designated as bike boulevard because it's part of the Wiggle, sort of a lower traffic route to get from the eastern end of town into the center of town. Park Place is part of that Wiggle as well. And I'm curious, I don't remember if there are shared lane or bike boulevard markings there now, but could that also be elevated, as part of this? Because again, it then becomes kind of a bike boulevard to nowhere if it's only that little segment of Walnut. And before you answer that, I'll mention my one other question, which is I'm excited that you're talking about the bike lanes on Hamilton. I know that engineering had concern years ago, last time this was discussed, about trying to slow traffic speeds a little and do some traffic calming as well. And I know we're also in a preliminary design phase for a slightly longer segment. I think it's all the way from Harrison to Moore. But the question I'm wanting to ask is, do you think we can ask, if this is something that PSE&G is doing, could we put in any speed bumps along there just to try and make those new bike lanes safer?
The Hamilton Avenue project is actually our project. It's a sewer improvement project.
Oh, okay.
So we can look at that. I'll go back to the drawing board and speak to the sewer department who's doing the design for that. Other roadway improvements were not included in it. It was because we were doing underground utility work, and we'd have to repave the roadway, but we can certainly take a look at that.
Okay. And in terms of Park Place, what do you think of that idea?
Park Place, I'm trying to, and unfortunately these maps in here as graphics aren't the greatest. I don't think PSE&G did Park Place.
Okay.
And so we're trying to take advantage of where new paving will be. Park Place could be added to a future striping contract. We're looking at doing striping again this year, and that contract would, of course, include much more than this. But this simply focuses on where we're going to have the roads repaved this year.
Okay. Well, I would strongly support getting those markings on Park Place if it's something that could be added to a striping contract.
Thanks, David. Do we have Leticia?
Yes, thank you. So as someone who feels not comfortable riding on the road, I like bike riding, I enjoy it, but I do not feel safe riding on the street. So I do appreciate having more bike lanes. But if we're going to be, when the time comes when we're asked to consider prohibiting parking on certain sections, something that I would want to know is how many spaces are we losing, who's parking there now, and how is that are those spots that are being used now, are they going to be accommodated elsewhere? I know that, for example, I live by Hamilton, so I know that it's pretty, those parking spots are used on, I always see cars parked there on a daily basis, and even if the residents themselves have driveways, those parking spots are being used, and it could be for construction, for workers, for employees that work downtown. So I just want to know where else we can accommodate those spaces that are being taken away.
Right. So you're looking for, that's just part of the discussion when we get to
Yes.
talking about, yep, just trying to make sure. Okay. I would, Jim, I would just say when we get to that too, the other question I would add to that, especially for Hamilton Avenue, is how safe is it to say, here's a couple of blocks where you have a bike path and then there's no bike path on either side of that. So I'm not sure how safe that is to create like the bridge to nowhere type of effect, but I'm a much bigger fan of a holistic approach to things. And anyway, I think we need when we get to that discussion, which we're not having tonight, which I realize, just to prepare everybody, I would ask, how does that make a lot of sense? And the parking thing, since we've been pushing people, we've been telling businesses, send your employees to these streets here to park. So on one hand, we're telling people to go park somewhere, and on the other hand, we're about to take the parking away. So again, we need to have an overall plan, and we can't be looking at these two things totally separate from each other. So at some point, they got to marry up with each other, and we have to have a plan that that addresses everything. Anyway, let me just, anybody else on this side at the moment? Mia?
I'm going to let Michelle, I think she wants to answer what you said, but I just have one question before we close this.
Sure. Okay, Michelle?
But, yeah, I was just going to suggest before we delve into Hamilton, that we table Hamilton, because Hamilton should be looked at holistically, absolutely. And because that's our project, my understanding was, and I think that this would be preferable in what I'm hearing from everyone tonight, is to pull Hamilton and wait and look at that holistically, because it is being designed. And to David's point, there are some traffic calming measures that need to take place on Hamilton, and you can't just have, I agree, I think, bike lanes by themselves there could be more dangerous than helpful. So I just would recommend, if we all agree, to table Hamilton and just maybe look at the other things that we need to make some decisions on. Thanks. Tonight, if possible.
All right. Steve, and then-
I'm just going to jump in real quick, Mia, thank you. I just want to say, I mean, I hear what Michelle's saying, I hear, Mark, what you're saying, but I feel like we have revisited this topic so many times, and then we get bogged down, and I understand we have to look at things holistically, but I don't want to, what's the expression, let the perfect be the enemy of the good, so I do want to find a way to move forward, and I understand Leticia is absolutely right. We have to think about the parking. We need to know how many spaces it is, but I'm just like, the community has been waiting for so long to have a safe way to get around, and I think PBAC has expressed that Hamilton is their preferred route, so let's just make it happen. I'm not saying don't think about these other things, but I just really want to be able to move forward, so
Yeah, no, I think what we're all saying is let's have the discussion, and let's talk about all the points and make sure that we actually bring them up, talk about them, and come to a conclusion. I don't want us just saying, oh, we're doing this without having saying, here's the pros and the cons. So an informed decision is good. Hang on, let me get Mia. I know Mia
I'm
was-
just going to say Hamilton's going to happen this year, because it's on the,
Yeah.
we're going to do Hamilton this
Yeah,
year.
we need to, I agree. We need to make a decision.
And move.
We do need to make a decision. Mia, please.
Hamilton was one of our articulated top goals, council goals for this year, so it's got to happen. And we've all promised David that we will, for better or worse, move forward with whatever we're going to do on Hamilton this year.
I have recordings of those promises.
So just back to Valley, I'm a little bit perplexed about Valley, and maybe we have to go back and do some research, but I was involved way back when the bike master plan, the bike mobility plan was being implemented, as was David. And I'm just wondering, I think there was work done on Valley Road at the time. I'm not sure if this was not in the bike mobility plan because that work had just been completed and there was a decision, whatever. My feeling or my memory is that there was a strong push from the bike committee for Valley Road to be in the bike mobility plan, and there was some logistical reason why it wasn't. Anyway, just would like us to go back and revisit that.
Yeah, I can share my recollection, which is that when it was being redesigned, Valley Road, the proposal was to have shared use side paths on both sides. So instead of sidewalks, 8 or 10 foot asphalt pavement in lieu of the sidewalks. And there was a lot of pushback, both from the residents who didn't want to see their front yards turn into what they saw as a 6-lane highway because those shared use side paths would look like part of the road. But also, I think there was a sense on the part of some that they preferred the idea of bike lanes in the roadway and separating the bicyclists from the pedestrians as well as from the cars, which was my preference. But it did not go ahead at that point because of that objection to that earlier plan, and I honestly don't remember what ended up in the master plan was arrived at. But,
But it's not in the bike master plan.
well, I
That's
mean,
what
there's
Jim is
something
saying.
proposed for Valley Road, or is there nothing?
Valley Road is proposed to be shared use, shared lanes.
Yeah, so
Okay,
share
so
roads.
It was the
Sharrows.
share. Well, anyway, I think that Valley Road is really a top priority. If there's any place where people should be able to bike safely, it's Valley Road, and I hope we can work that out. And I'm glad to hear that the bike lanes are, there was some consensus back then, and I anticipate there would be consensus now, that is something we could all.
Yeah, I think, there are enough pedestrians that it's a good idea to separate them from the bicyclists. And there's enough cyclists that it'd be good to separate them from the cars. And there's very little parking that goes on on that road. So, there's an occasional car, but I think it's something that should be doable, not necessarily as part of this restriping.
My point being, just because it's that, for whatever reason, didn't end up in the bike master plan, it's not an indication that there's not a strong
Good
push,
point,
a
good
reason
point. Yeah.
to move forward with that.
So,
Okay, thank you.
so I
Michelle?
think there's a couple things that we'd like to get some clarity from council on. One is those two roads, so Valley Road and Franklin, that were not in the master plan as bike lanes, but if everyone's in agreement, we could try and do that. I mean, it's not impossible to go back and.
Right, so I just want to.
So that would be number one.
Okay, just remember, we're in a work session, so we're not,
Just to get direction to,
well, we can't, okay, we're in a work session. In a work session, we don't make decisions. So we cannot give direction to somebody since this is advertised as a work session part of the meeting, and work sessions, you don't make decisions.
It's good to have discussion about it.
You can, no, you can discuss it all you want, but I'm saying we can't give direction based on this discussion.
okay. So, let's just.
Yeah, so can I ask what portions of Franklin we're talking about? Because
Right.
Yes,
Valley is clear to me, but Franklin is split by the high school.
Franklin's
And it's also split by Harrison.
Yeah.
So where on Franklin are we talking
So
about?
we were talking, Jim, right, from Harrison to the school? Harrison to Walnut?
Just give me one moment while
Thank
I
you.
pull up the map so I can be accurate. So PSE&G has replaced the main on Franklin. Oh, this is so tough to read. Yeah, between Harrison and that Linden? I'm having a hard time seeing it, sorry. Where we have, I'm going to have to punt and say that wherever we're going to do paving, we'll put back in the markings.
The markings that were there
Yeah.
before. Okay.
But PBAC has recommended bike lanes.
Yes.
And I guess two questions. Is the width of the roadway adequate for bike lanes if you took away the parking? And also, I've noticed that the pavement on the section of Franklin that goes between the choir college and the middle school is one of the worst stretches of road in Princeton. And I don't think there was any gas work done there, so I don't think PSE&G is repaving that, but I think that should be really seriously considered. So.
Okay, I'll take that under advisement, and we'll take a look at it.
Right, I would assume
know
on
it.
Franklin, you need to eliminate the parking to have a bike lane. Yeah, that's just not wide enough.
Then if you eliminate the parking, you may not have enough for 2 bike lanes.
Oh.
And that was the question I was asking.
Yeah.
Understandable if you don't have the information
don't-
off the top of
yeah,
your head.
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I will agree with you. I rode my bike on that just last week, and It is terrible.
Okay. Any other general I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, sometimes these discussions of bike lanes are often very much in the abstract, and we let perfection be the enemy of the good. And in terms of Franklin, the stretch of Franklin leading up to Harrison is very wide. You know, it might be nice to have bike lanes there, but nevertheless, it's a relatively safe place. And I have a child who rides that stretch every day, and I feel comfortable with that. However, once you cross Harrison and there is that little block leading up to the Choir College, I think it is one of the most frequently biked stretches by kids coming to both the middle school and the high school, and incredibly dangerous. For pedestrians, bikes, cars, it's chaotic there during rush hour. And if there's anything we could, if we need to prioritize resources, financial resources, that would be the spot on Franklin I hope we would focus on. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else up here? Anybody out there want to jump in with a comment? Again, we're not making decisions tonight, but as long as we're talking about this, if anybody wants to say something, you feel free. Okay. All good. It does show we do need to start to schedule some time to talk about specific streets, and I would think that we should take a few at a time and not try to do 10 or 12 at once in one meeting, because that will not be a recipe for success.
So-
But we need to start making some progress this year. So anyway. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Michelle?
Right, but to their credit, though, I mean, the idea was that this work is being done now.
Yep.
So we needed to bring it forward
Yeah.
to discuss.
If I could request, because I know, Jim, you are working on your presentation until 5 minutes before the meeting, so we don't have copies, but could that be distributed to council?
absolutely.
Because you went through a ton, and I tried to take note of things that jumped out at me, but I'm sure there are other things I didn't catch that I would like to
Yeah, and then we can
comment
share
on.
it with,
The intention was that this would be part of the minutes of the meeting.
Okay,
Right.
great.
cool.
Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you for all the discussion and the opportunity to try to move this new project forward with the PSC report.
And thank you to PBAC for all your work on this and your analysis and contributing and for being here. So.
Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, we're back.
Just very quick note that as we move forward, if we can maybe prioritize the low-hanging fruit, like where can we get the most bang for the buck with the least amount of debate in the area where people are going to care the least about, removing parking or making the changes, and continue to work on the more controversial ones, but let's do what we can to move forward. Thanks.
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, okay, just to wrap up, I mean, there's only 2 streets now that we're removing parking if we take Hamilton and have that as a separate discussion, and that's Hodge and Riverside.
And I will say Hodge, I think that parking is very lightly used and also very dangerous to use. So I think it's an excellent idea to remove that parking.
Okay. All right, good. So we have a general direction of trying to pick this apart piece by piece.
But no decisions, thankfully.
No decision tonight.
No recommendations.
Direction.
No directions.
I meant direction, not direct to do something. I meant direction, which way to go.
All good, all good. Okay, so we're now moving in the direction of the next item on the agenda, which is an ordinance introduction, and that would be ordinance 2024-26, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton increasing Princeton sewer service charges and amending the code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. The public hearing will be on May 28th, 2024. Would someone move that, please? David, thank you. Leighton has the second. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Barone Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you very much. Resolutions, 24-145, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing Princeton to enter into a cooperative pricing agreement with Mercer County Special Services District. Is there, Leighton, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, David. Questions or comments on that? David?
I don't know if we have anyone here tonight who can answer the question, but in reading it, I couldn't get a sense of what kinds of items we would hope to be able to access through this cooperative purchasing agreement that we can't get through this, Sourcewell or the state co-op or whatnot. So
Now, I don't know the answer as to what's in that particular co-op that we don't get elsewhere. I know we're in several, obviously, to take advantage of whatever the best pricing is, but I can get back to you on that.
thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
24-146, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the award of a contract to Motorola Solutions for mobile and portable radios and accessories for $208,669.40, using wireless electronics as a distributor, utilizing New Jersey State Contract 83909/T0109, radio communication equipment and accessories. Leticia, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? Michelle has the second. And just a way as comment, this is all grant money from the state that we worked on last year, actually with the then Mayor of Montgomery, Princeton, Montgomery, and some others in Somerset Township, put together a grant proposal that went to the state, and the state awarded us that grant, and this is our part of that grant. There's actually a little bit more money in that grant, but they only give you a certain percentage of it first, then you have to buy that, then they'll give you the rest of the grant, and then you can buy everything else, because it would make too much sense to do it any other way, like buy it all at once. So anyway, any questions or comments? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
24-147, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton in support of the New Jersey Invasive Species Strike Team application for a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Invasive Species Eradication Grant. Thank you, Eve. Is there a second? Thank you, Leighton. Questions or comments? David?
Again, I'm curious if anybody knows, are these plants, are these fauna? Is there a specific target of invasives?
I believe it's the newly emerging invasive species
Yeah,
that they're targeting.
Yeah, it's species that have not yet become a widespread problem to nick, probably things that none of us have heard of, because it hasn't been a wide enough spread problem. The idea is to nip those in the bud through very targeted applications.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24-148, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the award of a contract to UniFirst Corporation for uniform purchases for an amount not to exceed $60,000, utilizing Sourcewell National Cooperative Purchasing Contract 040920-UFC. Is there a motion on that? Thank you, David. Is there a second? Thank you, Michelle. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none. I'm sorry.
I'll just make the comment. I mean, for this agenda in general, I don't think there were any memos attached to any of these resolutions, and I would have appreciated a little more information about all of them. I think I figured out that this is for Public Works as opposed to some other group that needs uniforms, but that's as far as I could get.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, thank you, David. Good point.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up is the consent agenda, unless anyone wants something pulled from that. Eve, you're going to move the consent agenda? Yeah. Thank you very much. Is there a second? There is, okay. Michelle can get that second. Everybody put their hands up so quick, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
David, do you have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Mia. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are done. Thank you for being here.